I stood there, stunned. It was no longer just about women, it was no longer about secret marriages. My husband's coffin was being surrounded by voices of betrayal, each louder than the last. And with every voice, my shame grew heavier. The first woman clutched her baby tighter. The second woman still held her wedding photo high. And now, this man stood with letters as proof of broken promises. 3 different people, 3 different wounds, yet all pointing to one man. My Emeka. My husband. The coffin sat still, but I could feel it, like the wood itself carried guilt. The crowd no longer saw him as a man to be buried with honor. They saw him as a man who had built his empire on lies, fists, and broken hearts. And me. I felt like disappearing. The ground beneath my feet no longer felt safe. I wanted to scream, to shout, to curse his name, but my voice betrayed me. All I could do was stare at the coffin and whisper inside, "Why, Emeka? Why did you destroy us all?" The man holding the Bible looked directly at me. His eyes were wet, but his voice was firm. "Madam, forgive me for doing this here. But the world must know that this man's life was not the life you all thought it was. And if you bury him without truth, his spirit will not rest." The crowd exploded once again. Some agreed, others cursed him for speaking at a burial. But deep in their hearts, everyone knew the truth was only just beginning to show itself. Sometimes, the storm doesn't come from strangers, it comes from the people you call your own blood. And that day, at Emeka's burial, the storm finally turned inward. As the man with the Bible finished speaking, Emeka's family could no longer hold themselves. His elder brother, Chukwudi, stormed forward like a raging bull. His face was red with anger, his chest rising and falling as if he had carried fire inside him. "Enough," he shouted. "You will not destroy my brother's name like this. Leave this place before I deal with you." But before anyone could move, Emeka's sister, Ngozi, jumped in front of him. Her eyes burned, and her voice shook the air. "Chukwudi, stop pretending. You know these things are true. You know Emeka lived a crooked life. You know he deceived women, you know he stole from people, you know he beat his wife day and night. Stop defending him." The crowd gasped. To hear such words from his own sister was like thunder splitting the sky. Chukwudi turned to her with shock and fury. "Ngozi, have you lost your mind? This is our brother's burial. Are you not ashamed to say this here?" But Ngozi did not back down. She raised her hand and pointed at me where I stood trembling. "Ask his wife. She knows what I am saying is true." She carried the pain in silence while we all looked away. Emeka was no saint. His coffin may look polished, but inside lies a man who destroyed lives. The ground shook with murmurs. Some of the family members held Chukwudi back, others pulled Ngozi aside, but the damage was already done. The family was tearing itself apart in front of the whole village. I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to collapse, but the eyes of the crowd were on me. Old women whispered, "Her enemies are many." Some men shook their heads and said, "If even the sister has spoken, then the truth cannot be buried." Tears finally fell from my eyes, hot and heavy. I remembered nights when Emeka would leave without a word, returning with lies on his lips. I remembered days when his fist bruised my skin, and I still covered it with powder so people would not see. And now, in death, the world was uncovering everything I tried to hide. Then suddenly, a woman from Emeka's extended family shouted, "Let the coffin be opened. If he lived a life of secrets, let us see if even in death he hides something inside there." The crowd roared. Some shouted yes, some screamed no. The pastor nearly dropped his Bible in shock. The drums that had gone silent started again, but this time not with rhythm, they beat like drums of war. And me. My knees buckled. The thought of them opening Emeka's coffin sent chills down my spine. What if they truly found something inside? What if the dead man had one last secret buried with him? The crowd chanted like a restless sea. Some shouted, "Open it. Open the coffin," while others screamed, "Do not touch the dead." The burial ground was no longer a place of mourning, it had become a battlefield of voices and secrets. I stood there trembling, my heart pounding as if it wanted to jump out of my chest. The coffin, shining under the sun, suddenly looked darker, heavier, almost alive. My mind raced. What if they truly opened it? What if inside that box was another truth that would crush what little strength I had left? Chukwudi, Emeka's elder brother, stood like a lion protecting its den. His chest rose and fell like a man ready for war. "Nobody touches this coffin," he roared. His voice shook the ground. But before he could even breathe again, Ngozi, Emeka's sister, shot back with a fire in her eyes. "Let it be opened. Let the world see if there is still more shame hiding inside. I am tired of covering lies." The crowd gasped. Families rarely washed their dirty linen outside, but here it was, being thrown into the open sun. Old women held their heads, muttering, "This is abomination." Young men leaned forward eagerly, waiting to see what would happen next. Children clung to their mothers' wrappers, afraid of the voices, the anger, the thunder in the air. The pastor raised his Bible high, sweat dripping down his forehead. "Please, my people. Let us remember this is a burial ground. Let us not turn this place into a place of curse." But his voice was swallowed by the noise. The drums beat louder. Feet stamped the ground. The coffin itself seemed to tremble under the canopy, as if the dead man was mocking us from inside. I could barely breathe. My mind replayed every memory of Emeka, his sweet words when we first met, the charm in his smile, the fist that later bruised my skin, the nights he never returned home. And now this, his burial turning into a theater of disgrace. My soul whispered, what if Ngozi is right? What if there is still something hidden inside with him? Suddenly, two strong men from the crowd stepped forward. Their muscles glistened with sweat as they reached for the coffin. The whole place went silent. Even the birds stopped singing. All eyes fixed on those men as their hands touched the lid. Chukwudi jumped like a wounded lion. He pushed them back and shouted, "Over my dead body." His voice cracked, his eyes red. But then, from the other side, Ngozi rushed forward too, her wrapper loosening as she screamed, "If you do not open it, then I will open it myself." The crowd erupted again. Men tried to hold her, women begged her to stop, but her strength was wild. She grabbed the side of the coffin and began pulling at the lid. The wood creaked under her force, and my heart nearly stopped. The coffin creaked under Ngozi's grip. The sound alone sent chills through the crowd. Some screamed, others clapped their hands over their mouths. The air was so thick with fear and curiosity that even the pastor's prayers could not cut through it. Chukwudi wrestled with his sister, pulling her back with all his strength. "Are you mad?" he shouted. "Do you want to curse this family forever? Leave the coffin alone." His voice thundered, but Ngozi refused to let go. Her wrapper loosened more, falling halfway down her shoulder, yet she kept fighting like a woman possessed. The crowd grew restless. Old men were chanting, "Leave the dead to rest. Leave the dead to rest," while young men urged her on, "Open it. Open it. Let the truth come out." The burial ground shook with divided voices. Then suddenly, bam! A heavy wind blew through the canopy, scattering chairs and shaking the coffin so violently that the lid nearly slipped off. Children screamed. Women fell to the ground. The drums went silent. Everyone froze, their eyes fixed on the box of secrets. I felt my blood run cold. My body shook like a leaf in storm. My lips trembled as words escaped me. "Emeka, even in death, you are still fighting us." The coffin moved again, as though unseen hands were pushing it from inside. Some villagers shouted, "His spirit is angry." Others cried, "It is a sign from God." Ngozi staggered backward, her face pale. For the first time, her fire dimmed, replaced by fear. Chukwudi quickly covered the coffin with his hands, shouting, "Nobody touches this again. Do you all want us to die here today?" The pastor rushed forward, his Bible shaking in his hand. "My people, let us not play with fire. When the dead begin to move, it is not ordinary. We must pray." He dropped to his knees, praying loudly, his voice echoing across the burial ground. But while everyone's eyes were fixed on the trembling coffin, I noticed something else. The man with the Bible, the one who had earlier accused Emeka of fraud, was no longer holding just letters. He now carried a brown envelope tucked tightly under his arm. His eyes darted left and right, as if debating whether to reveal what was inside. I knew in my spirit that envelope carried another storm, one greater than all we had seen. The way his hands shook, the way his lips trembled, it was clear he had not yet spoken his last word. And then he took a step forward. Slowly. Carefully. The crowd turned, eyes widening. Silence fell again, heavier than before. He raised the envelope high. His voice cracked, but his words were sharp. If you think you have seen the worst of Emeka's secrets, wait until you see this. Silence. Heavy, choking silence. The kind that presses against your chest until breathing becomes a burden. That was the silence that fell when the man lifted the brown envelope into the air. Flushed face. Every eye in the burial ground fixed on him. Children stopped crying, women froze mid-whisper, and even the restless coffin seemed to come, as though waiting to hear what new storm was about to fall on us. My hands trembled. My lips were dry. My spirit whispered, Lord, please, not another shame. The man's voice shook, but his words were clear. In this envelope are papers Emeka signed. Evidence of land he sold, money he took, and promises he made. But that is not all. In this envelope is something deeper, something that will change everything you thought you knew about him. Gasps scattered through the crowd. Chukwudi shouted from the side, lies. All lies, but even his voice lacked the fire it once carried. His face was pale. His hands shook. Deep inside, he too feared what might come out. Slowly, the man tore the envelope open. The crowd leaned forward like one body, breaths held, hearts pounding. He pulled out a bundle of papers, yellowed at the edges, and lifted one high. This, he said, his voice cracking, is Emeka's signed confession. A confession of everything he hid. The crowd roared. People pressed forward, trying to catch a glimpse. The man began to read, I, Emeka, write this in case death finds me. I have wronged many. I have married more than one woman, I have fathered children in secret, I have taken money I never returned. But worst of all, his voice broke. The man paused, tears streaming down his face. Worst of all, he continued, I betrayed even my own blood. I sold the land that belonged to my family, the land my father left for us, and I used it to live a life of lies. If they find out, they will curse my name forever. The crowd exploded. Women screamed. Men shouted. Some fell to their knees in disbelief. Emeka's family buried their faces in shame. Ngozi cried out, tearing her wrapper in grief, while Chukwudi collapsed onto a chair, covering his head with both hands. And me. I stood there shaking like a leaf. My tears fell, but they were not tears of love. They were tears of betrayal, of wasted years, of a marriage built on dust. I whispered under my breath, so this is the man I danced for. This is the man I called husband. The coffin shook again as if his spirit protested. But this time, no one dared to touch it. The truth had already opened him wider than any lid could. The burial was no longer about laying Emeka to rest, it was about laying bare the lies he carried to the grave. I lifted my face to the sky, wiped my tears, and said loudly, let him be buried with his secrets. I will not carry this curse anymore. My voice echoed through the ground. The crowd turned to look at me, some nodding in agreement, others still shocked. The drums beat once more, but this time not with joy, not with war, but with the heavy sound of sorrow. And as they lowered Emeka's coffin into the ground, one question burned in every heart. After so many secrets, so much shame, and so many wounds, could any of us ever find peace again? If you were in my shoe, what will you do? Drop your opinion in the comment section.